We'd like to thank you guys for staying with us on the I Am Real Estate Show with Sandra Ray, Danielle, and John Spurr, who is the CEO of Inspired Life. Here for the final segment, talking lending and borrowing.
You know, we're talking about some of the differences in the rates and some of the new changes, and they've been highly publicized in the last couple of weeks. But I'm wondering, for someone who has a little bit of a higher credit score, like a 720 to a 780 or even an 800, what actually is different now, and how long has it actually been different? What does that look like for them?
So the borrowers that had that 720 and above bucket before the changes, and now it's 720, 740, 760, 780, the low-level pricing adjustment in those buckets is somewhere between 3/8 to 1/8% of the loan amount. So for $100,000, that's $375 to $125 in what we would refer to as a fee or a closing cost. Now, none of us as lenders take these fees and charge them to you. We use the interest rates that are available to cover those fees. So let's say in a $300,000 home with a 3/8 adjustment, you're looking at almost $1,000. The rate is probably going to be about 1/8% higher, maybe slightly under that, but it's not a big change. It's about 1/8%. If you're on the higher end of that, it's probably not even an interest rate change. It might be $300 to $400 extra in closing costs.
So we're talking lattes here.
It's not much
as far as a house payment.
But the other thing I want to put in perspective that they're not talking about, because it's making it sound like a person with a good credit score has a higher interest rate than somebody with a bad credit score. And we had this conversation in your guys' meeting on Tuesday. There's about a 1.5% difference in interest rate from somebody that has a 720 credit score and a 620. Somebody with a 620 credit score is going to pay 1.5% higher in rate than somebody with a 720 credit score. This is not somebody with good credit is paying a higher interest rate. It's the change was minimal, and the minimal amount that it changed is not subsidizing the change they made on the other end, because the change on the other end was thousands of dollars. There's no way we're subsidizing thousands of dollars on the bottom end with only $125 per transaction on the top end.
So something else that we've chatted about here recently is some of the things that you've seen recently with buyers that are not using a professional on the real estate side.
So we call those FSBOs, for sale by owner.
Or mistakes.
There's what?
Or mistakes.
Or mistakes. I get quite a few FSBOs because title companies around town have learned that I know how to fill out the escrow instructions and how to work through these. And every time I get one, it's always family member selling to family member. You sure you don't want to have a real estate agent involved? You sure you don't want a Arizona residential contract? If they're representing both sides, they may not charge you as much. Let's get an agent involved. Oh, no. This is going to be fine. It's going to be fine. 50% of the time, it turns into an argument, and they end up not talking to each other anymore.
You know, and you bring up a good point there, that if they have already talked about the sale and they've negotiated the price, then they can't come to a real estate agent and say, just write this up for us. If
Right.
you've done all of the negotiating and you've, talked to that person, then you would have to actually take that to an attorney and say, would you draw this up?
Absolutely.
So your options are, if you're at an agreement, go to the attorney. If you are negotiating and you're looking for someone who is going to represent you and protect your interests, then at that point you can go to an agent. But we cannot act as attorneys, so we need to be part of that process. If you're going to call us,
also, can't we? One thing about we can represent both sides too.
Yeah, and that depends on the company that you're working for. So we have done that. I always say I can get along pretty well with myself. But yeah, some companies probably wouldn't allow that, but we certainly can do that. And I think it's just important to know that if you have the agent representing, or the broker, not even the agent, the broker representing both the buyer and seller, they're not going to favor one over the other. Right. And we do have some of our duties that we are in kind of conflict, because we have fiduciary duties. So we say we can't give you full disclosure, and also confidentiality to both parties. We couldn't. And so they have to acknowledge that and understand that we are limited in that role. But absolutely, we could do that. Yeah.
These transactions put me in that weird situation. Like the most recent one I had, they were buying a manufactured home from a family member who was moving out of state, and the seller kept asking me, well, are they qualified? Have they given you their pay stubs? Do they have enough down payment? And this is information that I can't share.
Right.
And the individuals buying the property were very young, in their early 20s, and unresponsive to their family member who was the seller, and there was no vehicle for me to provide information to one side or the other without compromising myself. Whereas when I have realtors on either side, I go, hey, Sandra, this is what's going on. This is my solution. We're going to need a couple days to close. And then you can go facilitate that, and you can say the things that need to be said. Whereas I don't have that ability. And it just, selling a home to a family member is not an issue, but use a real estate agent. It's going to save relationships. It really is. What real estate agents get paid to sell the house is minuscule compared to ruining a family relationship for the rest of your life.
Well, and since this is what we do, we know the process and we know the questions to ask, and checking into the status of the home a little bit more than you may if it's just buying it from the family member and being afraid to ask those questions and really know what you're getting into.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't perform brain surgery on yourself or drill out your own cavity. So,
most of us would not do that.
No.
Nope.
And you had another situation with a home builder.
Yeah, it's a current situation.
So give us just what you can without getting in trouble.
It's again, the individual is buying the property. Asked them a couple times, you sure you don't want to get a real estate agent involved in this? Oh no, they say they do this all the time. They know how to fill out the contract. Contract comes in, and it's an Arizona residential resale contract. It's not for new construction. Long story short, build the whole house. They had a conversation of, well, we're going to trade this out for this. We're not going to build this part over here, but we want to build this instead. Oh, that's great. We'll do it for the same price. 5 days before closing, here comes an addendum for hundreds of thousands of dollars more, saying, oh, I added this square footage. Like, oh, but you didn't build this over here. And the worst part about this is we had a phenomenal rate for them. We had a rate in the mid-4s, and they've blown their lock. I can't get them mid-4s right now. Not going to happen. They're going to be high 5s. They're going to court over this. These type of things could have completely been prevented with just a single agent involved in the transaction.
Right. Well, with that being said, we have just about 4 minutes left on the show. I wanted to ask you about your grand opening. We just were invited to attend, and you guys have such a beautiful office, and you've got Inspired Life Mortgage, but you have the Inspired Life Chiropractic, and you're expanding.
Yeah, so I will be eventually doing Inspired Life Insurance. That hopefully will happen this year, but it's a brand. Call it the parent company if you want. It's called the Inspired Life Group, and then my wife is a chiropractor, has been for 15, 16 years now, and she has Inspired Life Chiropractic. I have Inspired Life Mortgage. We operate out of the same office space. The grand opening was phenomenal. I think we had 125, 130 people come through in around 4 hours, plenty of food. I don't know. It's a great space. I think it's a great location. When I designed it, I wanted it to feel like you're walking into home and that you can hang out for a bit and sit there and chat and have a good time and meet people. And I think we accomplished that with what we put together. And I know that mortgage and chiropractic sounds like a weird combination, but we're not the only mortgage chiropractic team in Tucson. So there happens to be another couple up on the northwest side. He's a chiropractor, and she's done mortgage lending. I've known her for 20 plus years, and so we're not the only ones. There is another chiropractic mortgage team on the other side of town.
And you guys have some really great services that your wife does offer, Dr. Rachel. Why don't you give her a shout out?
Oh, so we have, I use all the stuff. I love everything there. So we have massage, acupuncture. We have 2 massage therapists, 1 acupuncturist. Sorry. We have new technology called the Hocket, and I cannot tell you what it stands for, but I do know that it is ozone therapy, infrared therapy. It's basically a sauna on steroids. We have soft wave therapy that I use all the time. It's great for soft tissue damage and joint damage. Really helps you repair from any type of damages like that. But I mean, really, for her perspective, she is looking at whole body and how the services she has can help people heal, holistically without drugs and surgery.
You got her website?
My website is inspirelifemortgage.com. The chiropractic office is inspirelifechiropractic.com.
Well, that's not too bad. I thought it'd be like some whole different names and terminology when you're trying to get a hold of one.
They're easy to find. And the phone number again?
520-247-3610.
We would not have John on the show if we didn't think he was the best lender in town. We really wouldn't. Okay, with that, we are going to close out the show. John, thank you for being here today. We appreciate you and the support that you give to us as well. We also would like to thank Indy Realty and Rego Pest Prevention, Pioneer Title Agency, and Caring Transitions. If you're using any of our sponsors, we would appreciate it if you'd let them know that you heard about them on the show. And we're always here to help with your real estate needs. Sandra at 520-850-1725, Raymond at 520-904-7711, or Danielle at 520-373-6864. The Johnson Smith team at indy-realty.com.
Thanks, John.